Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Chicago Gooner bringing you another Arsenal talk. In this Arsenal talk, I'll be talking about the DM role and the position of how important it is for Arsenal to fill in this transfer window. Going into this transfer window, there's two positions that were just we need extra bodies. We need more quality at the position, and one was striker, and the other was the DM role, the defensive holding midfielder. And one was almost even as important as the other. If you saw our season, even the last two seasons, um, just to name a couple of games, all you have to do is name these two games and say, okay, yes, we definitely need a defensive holding midfielder, and that's the Liverpool game, the 5-1 at Anfield, and the 6-0 loss against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. You can go back and watch those games, even if you can stomach it, because I couldn't even dream about. I mean, I don't even want to watch those games ever again. But if you watch those games and you watch how out of position Mikel Arteta was in those two games, how there was just no help for the back four, how the back four was just so vulnerable, especially like Mertesacker and Koscielny during those games, how vulnerable they were, of how wide open the middle was, of how the strikers, even wingers, could have just pranced right down the middle with the ball and scored easily. And that has to do with not having a proper holding midfielder. I like Arteta. His energy, his determination, but he's just not a holding midfielder. He's a central midfielder trapped in a position of where he just doesn't understand it. It's kind of sad to watch Arteta try to play that role for the last 2 years, and it's just, it's almost painful to watch because he is a good player. I mean, he's a great, he has great ball control. He has a great passer, um, but that's where it ends. He just doesn't have that defensive mind. He doesn't have that discipline. The only time you really saw that discipline was in the FA Cup final. After Hull City went up 2-0, you can go back and rewatch that game. I rewatched it over the weekend, and you saw Mikel Arteta. He was within 2 or 3 yards of Mertesacker and Koscielny to make sure that Hull City did not score again. He was within 2 yards, 3 yards. He was right in line with them most of the time after those two goals. Whether if Wenger finally told him, "Hey, you just sit there and you just sit there the entire fucking game, because we can't afford another goal against us." If he played like that all the time, I would be all for him playing week in and week out, or rotating with Flamini, because Flamini knows how to play the position. But I guess for Arsene Wenger, he's just too destructive, I guess you can say. Which we definitely, we miss that imposing figure in the middle of the field to maybe even send a message to the other team. If you're gonna play a little bit dirty, we will too. But it doesn't seem like Wenger really likes that from Flamini. Sometimes Flamini gets a little crazy, but sometimes we need crazy. Sometimes we need that guy to just dive in there and just say, screw you, I'm going to make a hard tackle, and I'm going to send a message to say, hey, stop with this dirty shit, or I'm going to go studs up next time. And Arteta's just not that guy. He just can't play that role. He just has too much of that central midfielder, I'm going to bomb forward, in his blood. And to his defense, it's not his fault. Because he was forced into a position that he's just not normally equated to. But at the same time, he just, over the last two seasons, he just hasn't gotten better at the position. You know, um, he's on the wrong side of 30. On top of that, um, but to not, but not to, he's taking a role, and he's like, okay, I'll be this guy, and yada yada yada. But in the grand scheme of things, he's not that guy. He has too much of that attacking blood, running through his veins. And we need that classic DM. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to some people, or I read a lot of tweets from people saying that, we don't need that classic DM. We don't, with how our attacking is, and how we possess the ball, we don't need that classic DM. Well, I don't know what these people are smoking, but all you have to do is look at that Liverpool game, the Chelsea game, the Man City game. All you have to do is look at our record against top four teams over the last 3, 4 seasons. And it's not pretty. It's ugly. It's very ugly. Even in Champions League, you need that type of guy. You look at all the teams that have won the league over the past couple of years, in each league, whether it's EPL or whether it's Serie A or Bundesliga or La Liga, they all have that guy that can set up shop, especially against good teams, and in Champions League. They all have that guy that just sets up shop. I mean, the last time we've really had that is what, Gilberto Silva, and people are saying, well, we don't need that type of guy anymore. I don't know what games these people are watching. I don't get that at all, because we need that guy more than anything. We need that type of person. We need that rock right in the middle of the field, especially against those top four teams, especially against Champions League sides. If we plan to make it past the round of 16, the knockout stage in Champions League, you need that guy. You look at Man City, they have Ferrandino, they have Yaya Toure. Yaya Toure is more of a, he bombs forward a little bit more than normal, but you have Ferrandino back there setting up shop. You look at Barcelona, they have, Sergio Busquets. You look at Juventus, they have Paul Pogba and Vidal. You go over to Bayern Munich, they have Javi Martinez, they have Schweinsteiger. They have a shitload of fucking defenders over there. Even you look at even Dortmund, they have Sev Bender, Gundogan when he comes back. You look at Chelsea, they have Matic, they have Ramirez, they have Mikel. Everybody has those type of guys. We do not. And against those top four sides, when you know they're going to come and attack on you, when you know they're going to look for a counterattack at any chance they get, especially Chelsea, who parks the bus all the time, and they're a defensive counterattacking team under Jose Mourinho. And that's all Man City did to us when we played them up at Manchester last season. They just sat back and they let us attack as much as we wanted. And they just kind of sat back and boom, right on the counterattack. I think 4 of their 6 goals, one was a PK, came off counterattacks. And I know Flamini played that day. But again, we need that guy that's going to come up against those top 4 teams, who's going to be a rock right in the middle. And I don't understand these people who call themselves maybe experts, whether it's on Twitter or podcasts or anything, saying that we don't need that type of guy. Well, then go back and watch those games and you tell me if we don't need that type of guy. Go back and watch the Champions League round of 16 versus Bayern Munich and you tell me that we don't need that guy. That big imposing figure right in the middle of the park. To put in those hard tackles, to put in, to get the ball back. Decent passer, whatever. We need that guy to just solidify our attack, because it'll open up so many more things for our attack. It'll cover for the fullbacks when they bomb forward. You can have both fullbacks bomb forward, and that DM will just sit there with the center halves, covering for any type of counterattack. I know some people are saying, well, convert Jack Wilshere into a DM. No. How stupid is that? That would be the dumbest move for that kid's career ever. Because he's an attacking player. You don't make an attacker a DM. because it would be Mikel Arteta all over again. Because that's all that Jack wants to do is get forward. Yeah, he'll take one for the team and he'll play that role, but you're just wasting his talent by doing that. Can you do that against, lower half teams, maybe newly promoted teams? Sure. Because most of the time they're just going to park the bus and hopefully, they can come out with a draw or maybe a 1-0 victory or something. Maybe teams like that, maybe you can do that with Jack Wilshere, but not all the time. You would just be wasting his talent. Aaron Ramsey, he's no way. And some people are also saying, well, Ramsey will be back there too, and he'll cover. He's a box to box guy, but you can't always expect Aaron Ramsey when he's in the 18-yard box, helping the attack, helping to score goals, and all of a sudden the team goes on the counterattack. You can't expect him to run back 60, 70 yards to help with the counterattack all the time. Even though he does probably about 80% of the time when he shouldn't have to. Because if we had that DM back there, he shouldn't have to run 60, 70 yards to try to make up and cover for people who are out of position already. Because in our attack, you don't want that. In our attack, you want our fullbacks to bomb forward, to help in the attack, to get crosses in. It's a huge part of our attack. And with the proper DM, with that classic DM, we can have that again. And, we have, the great thing about, I guess, this transfer window is that all the people's names that are coming up, a Sammy Khedira, which seems all but dead, unfortunately. His wage demands were just too much to take on. I think he thinks he's more special than everybody else, which is, that's the type of guy you just don't want to have with this group of guys who seem very united, who seem like a group of guys who actually like each other, who want to play for each other, who wants to play for the badge, who wants to win trophies. To where sometimes in the past we had a bunch of individuals playing as a team. To where these guys are actually playing as a team. So the last thing we need is for someone to come in to think he's more special than the next guy. And just because you wear that Real Madrid jersey doesn't make you the best player in the world. Then you have names like Lars Bender, Morgan Schneiderlin. Both quality guys. It seems like Morgan Schneiderlin might be choosing Spurs over Arsenal, which is a joke. It just kind of makes me wonder, is that guy ready for a big club? It doesn't seem like it. It doesn't seem like he's ready to take that next step because, unless you're an English Premier League fan and you follow it and you watch games like every single weekend, chances are you don't know who Morgan Schneiderlin is. I mean, the French national team coach didn't know who he was up until about, 3 to 6 months ago. He finally found out who he was. So maybe he doesn't want that type of pressure. Maybe he doesn't want to have that type of pressure of being a top 4 team playing in Champions League. I thought I read a quote that said he wanted to play in Champions League, that he wanted Champions League football, but if he's going to Spurs just because of a manager, it doesn't seem that way. But we'll see how that one plays out. Because it's gone awfully quiet again. This transfer window has gone awfully quiet all of a sudden, which I'll get into a little bit more later. But then you have a guy like Lars Bender, which may or may not be media driven. We were supposedly in for him last year, and we didn't pay what Bayer Leverkusen wanted last year. And of course his name is dried up. His name has not been seen on Twitter at all. It hasn't been seen in my Arsenal search for about a week now. His name completely disappeared from any type of links for Lars Bender. But the new name seems to be Morgan Schneiderlin, but in the last couple days that's dried up too. Maybe it's because of our new inquiry, supposedly, from Sporting Lisbon, William Calvajo. Sorry if I butcher that name. I'll just keep on calling him William from now on. He plays for Sporting Lisbon, 22 years old, 6'1", 6'2", big body. Uh, kind of has that Yaya Toure type of frame, big imposing figure. Comes very highly regarded. Some articles I've read about him saying that he's the next big thing for Portugal, and he's a DM who can also play as he can also cover for center half as well. He just recently got on the Portugal national team, you know the first team. He was with the under 21s, with the under 20s, 19s, 18s, 17, all the way down. He got his chance. He's first came on against the United States actually in the second half, and then played the entire game against Ghana. And I thought he looked pretty good. I thought from what I can remember, that's about the only times that I've really seen him play. Um, there is a highlight tape which I will try to remember to um, link it in the description so you can check it out if you haven't checked it out already. I know it's a highlight tape, and it's all of his best, which you don't really get to see some of his worst. Sometimes highlight tapes can be a little bit over exaggerated. Sometimes you can make anybody look great, but in a highlight tape. But watching his highlight tape, I mean, he looks strong. He looks, he has that length where he can reach for the ball and just poke it right out. It looked like from his highlight tape, it looked like his positioning is right. He's more defensive minded than he is attacking minded. It seems like he's a pretty good passer from what I've been reading about him through articles and what other people have been saying about him, because it's the Portuguese league. The only time you get to see Portuguese league teams is either in Champions League or Europa League. That's about it. Because he just returned to Sporting Lisbon, I believe, this last half of the season. He only has 30 appearances and 4 goals for him since 2011 when he first joined with the senior team. He was with the youth squad from 2005 to 2011. And I'll get into the only negative about William is that, one, he plays in the Portuguese league, and number two, he plays in the Portuguese league. The Portuguese league is notorious for having huge buyout clauses in player contracts. One of the reasons for that is they go through third-party loans a ton, and that's why they ask for such a huge payout. And some Portuguese teams, like a Benfica overprices their players tremendously. You can see some of their recent sellings over the last 2 or 3 years, and it's massive amounts of money. They ask for a lot of money there, and of course their buyout clauses are massive as well. His buyout clause for William is 45 million euros, which is a crazy number. That's Julian Draxler money right there. You kind of maybe expect something like a Julian Draxler to go for that, 45 million euro buyout clause, because he's with Schalke. Schalke is one of the top Bundesliga sides. They're consistently in the Champions League for the last few years. You kind of expect that from what everybody's calling a wonder boy, the next big thing for Germany coming up. But 45 million euros for a guy that not too many people have really heard of. He just got on the senior team for the national team. He just got into the senior team for Sporting Lisbon. I've read some reports that Arsenal started out with a 24 million pound bid, which is still is kind of crazy to think they started out with that type of bid right off the bat. And you go in, and there's another report saying that Sporting will take as low as 30 million pounds. So that's a 6 million pound difference. What the wages will cost, I don't know. I don't know what his wages are right now with Sporting. I don't know what he's going to demand or want. So this one's kind of like on the fence. A lot of people are saying that, this kid is the next big thing for Portugal, and he has world class potential to him. Now, is that something we want? Obviously. He he's that classic DM that we need. But for 30 million pounds, maybe even 35 million pounds, because that's basically the equivalent of 45 million euros. That's a shitload of money. A lot of people are saying, well, why don't we play that for Draxler, and get him into the squad? That's a shitload of money for someone who is somewhat unproven. They have great potential, and I'm sure under the tutelage of Arsene Wenger, Steve Bold, and even the teammates, I'm sure the kid could be something special. But are you willing to gamble? Are you willing to pay that type of money? Because it seems like, if this is a real bid, if this is a real name that's out there, then that means the Khedira deal is dead. Schneiderlin isn't coming, and possibly the Lars Bender thing is a complete media-driven hoax. But if this kid is everything that everybody's saying he is, from some people who have seen him play, and all the other different stuff from like Arsenal forums that I've read, articles and stuff, this kid could be a fucking monster for us. And of course, this is exactly what we need. And he can cover for the center half position as well. But again, that money is just kind of like, oof. 30 million pounds, 35 million pounds. Of course they're going to try to bid as low as possible right out the gate. That, it's like a feeler bid. Because I guess for Sporting, that's the biggest problem, is that they don't have full ownership of William at all. They have a third-party loan which they need to pay off along with the money they get. So they actually, of course they want to make some money off of it as well, along with paying off the third-party loan. Because I think that's why, Arsenal kind of, they kind of stay away from the Portuguese league. That's why everybody's screaming, oh, go out and get Jackson Martinez. Jackson Martinez, he's a striker, plays for Porto. He has a buyout clause of 27 million pounds. So that when you deal with that league, you're going to have to pay out. You're going to have to pay some big ass money to get him out of there. But again, if this is a guy that they're going to go after, another quality name, another quality player, things are looking up. But I can't stress enough that, God, we need that DM. We need a defensive midfielder. Because if we don't get that in this transfer window, it's going to be scary again next year. I don't care about adding Alexis Sanchez or Debuchy or anything. If we do not get that defensive midfielder, we're going to have problems again. We're going to have problems against Man City. We're going to have problems against Chelsea. We're going to have problems against Champions League opponents. Yeah, we'll probably get out of the playoff. We'll probably even get out of group league. But when you get in that round of 16, that's the 16 best teams, 16 best clubs in the world at that present time. And they can all play. and you need that kind of defensive-minded player to be on the pitch at that time. Because teams like that, they're not going to just let us do whatever we want. They're not going to let us have 65% possession, 60% possession, get in as many shots as we want. It's just not going to happen. Because I think if we get that guy in, I mean, you're just going to see a whole different. You're going to see attacks like we used to see back in the Invincibles days. Where it was just like boom, 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 back in the net, goal. Because it'll just open up so many more things. It'll open up, Gibbs can bomb forward more often. Same with Debussy. Aaron Ramsey can bomb forward even more instead of having to hold back sometimes and try to cover with the DM, which was Arteta most of the time. So we definitely need that DM to come in. We need that guy, and I hope it happens within the next week or so because we're about 3.5 weeks away from our opening game, and we need those guys to get into the squad. Get playing with the squad, get to know the guys, get to know the Arsenal system. Because if you go back to, Mesut Ozil did a article during the season. He said he wished he would have came in sooner to Arsenal during their preseason, so he could have trained with everybody, so he can get to know everybody better, so he can know the strengths and weaknesses of his teammates, rather than just learning on the fly all last season. Of course, he's basically going to be doing the same thing this year because there is a report saying that the Germans aren't going to be due back until August 11th, which is the week before our first game. It's the day after the Community Shield, which is pretty concerning. It's either we're not going to take that thing seriously and we're just going to let it go, or I have no idea, because Koscielny will be back. Mertesacker will not be back. Chances are TV5 will be in a Manchester United uniform. And who knows what's going to happen with that. It almost seems like Wenger is going to, he wants Chris Smalling back in the deal. So, of course, if we get him, then I guess we don't need another center half, but it would be smart to go out and buy another center half, to have 4 center halves in the squad as cover, so you can rotate. So Mertesacker and Koscielny doesn't have to, play every single Premier League game, play every single Champions League game, play every single FA Cup tie. Those guys, even though they don't run a whole lot, they still need time. They still need rest too. They still need rest just like everybody else. It's a great partnership. I mean, it's probably the best in the Premier League, but those guys need a break here and there too. So I think it's important too that we get another center half in, because it seems like David Ospina is going to be announced. It'll probably be announced on Thursday, like everything else. This Thursday thing's kind of getting annoying. I mean, it's great to announce a new player, but waiting until then is just, I don't, this isn't the time of where we need to, fiddle around and just make inquiries. We need to start making bids, real bids, to find out, okay, what do you want? Okay, let's meet in the middle. Okay, we'll go this far on a certain player, because there's not too much time to mess around. And we can't wait until the last week, the last day again in this transfer window to get shit done, especially on a defensive holding midfielder and a center half. We just can't wait. And Wenger said, he came out after the preseason game that said we're not going to buy another center forward. It's concerning, but at the same time, you almost have to say that it's going to be between Joel Campbell and Sonogo for that third choice uh, center forward. Because of course you got Giroud, you got Sanchez now, and it's going to be either Campbell or Sonogo. Whoever fares better goes out on loan. Doesn't go out on loan. I think either way, you know, I think you send Sonogo out on loan no matter what. Just keep Joe Campbell with the side because he can cover as not only as a striker but as a winger as well. Because the more Sonogo goes forward, if he doesn't score in an Arsenal shirt soon, his confidence is just going to be lower and lower and lower to the point to where he's going to be useless out there. It's going to be to the point to where it's going to be 11 on 10 every single game that he plays in because he just doesn't have the confidence. He's going to get to the point to where he might even be scared to shoot. So I kind of hope that they make the decision to leave Campbell, to give him his real shot that he deserves, to leave him into the side and send Sonogo out on loan. Some other loan news: Serge Gnabry. I don't know if this was part of the Debussy deal, or it could be part of the Morgan Schneiderlin deal, that Serge Gnabry might go on loan to either Southampton or Newcastle. There was rumors also that Joel Campbell was supposedly a part of the Debussy deal to where he was going to go to Newcastle on loan. So is it a possibility that Arsenal, while they're making deals for players, saying, okay, well, we're going to buy your player, you can have one of our players out on loan, and a good player at that. I mean, Gnabry and Campbell are two of the brightest young stars upcoming. I think Campbell, of course, is a little further ahead than Gnabry, obviously, because Campbell played in France. He played for Olympiacos last year. He has Champions League experience. He has World Cup experience, and that's why I think too you keep Joel Campbell in the side, and you put him as your number 3 striker, and send Sonogo out on loan. Send him to a championship side where he's going to play 30, 35 times in the year, and hopefully score some goals to bring up his confidence so he can really grow into his body, because you can see he's still growing into his body. He still needs to add some weight to his body, and he's still a little awkward. He still doesn't have his rhythm down, I guess you can say, his coordination. So that's one thing to look out for is who we're setting out on loan to certain places that it might be part of a deal as well. So maybe the Schneiderlin thing isn't completely dead if you see Gnabry possibly going to Southampton, because Southampton's just ripped apart at this point. They have next to no one other than Jay Rodriguez, even though what does he have, an ACL injury anyway? He's not due back for a while yet. So you got to maybe look at some of those different transfers. I think Olsen might be going to either the Dutch league. I think it's the Dutch league that he asked for to go be put on loan. I heard maybe possibly a French side as well. So it looks like he might be going on loan, which will be good for him to get that extra experience, get that a real league experience instead of just playing for the under 21s, because he looked great in the preseason. Seems like some of those guys are going to start going on loan. Hopefully, maybe sometime this year, or maybe even next year, that Zelalem will be put on loan as well, so he can start getting that experience. Possibly like Akpom as well. I'm sure Afobe will probably go back on loan possibly. But other than that, that's all I got for you. Like I said, the DM role is it's so important. It can solve so many problems within our side of just having that one guy. It's kind of like, just look at a Mesut Ozil, Alexis Sanchez, of how many problems that's going to solve for us. over these last two transfer windows of how many problems in our attack that's going to solve. The DM spot's the same damn thing. But that's all I got for you. If you have any comments in the comments section, you know anything about William or have any opinions on him, leave them down in the comments section. And that'll be it. Later.